thank you for being able to connect with Kate today. And we just pray against all the interruptions that could happen. But Lord, we also know that you are in charge of all things. And so we just pray that you will help lead our conversation to encourage listeners out there and viewers as well, and that you will just be at the heart of all that we discussed today. So we just thank you for your goodness and grace and just for this opportunity to share. And we just love you, Lord, in your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Oh, welcome, Christy. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I am so happy I discovered you because you talk a lot about what I believe in and have a lot more experience than I do, as your youngest, I believe, is about the same age as my oldest child.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm really looking forward to this.
Awesome. I have a lot of things I want to ask you that I really want to learn, and I want the listeners to learn and gain some wisdom from you. And we're also going to be talking about your brand new book. So let's get right into it.
All right.
Okay. So tell me a bit about yourself and your family.
Well, myself, I am a mom of 5. So my oldest is 17 and my youngest is 6 now. Okay. Crazy town. So we have a real mixture of, ages, and the 3 oldest are boys and the 2 youngest are girls. Okay. And my husband, Steve, and I have been married for 22 years. Wow. Coming up next week, I think.
Congrats.
I think it's our anniversary next week. So exciting. That is our home life. On the side, like my secret identity is that I'm an author, a podcaster, and a YouTuber. So I have a lot of fun encouraging families out there, whether it's in their homeschooling, because we do homeschool. Sometimes it's family life that I'm talking about, but just whatever people need, I love to encourage them. So it's just been neat to see how God has blessed this little ministry, and it's kind of even turned into a business. So it's been really fun.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love to hear that. I have been kind of deep diving into a bunch of your podcasts, and we are hoping to homeschool maybe the next calendar or school calendar year. So yeah. I feel a little bit overwhelmed at the prospect of it all. So I'm trying to gain as much knowledge as I can, because I feel like, can I actually do this?
Oh, no, you will feel like that. Like, for honestly, here I'm being very honest, but like your first 3 years. And then you're like, oh, I get this. Because it takes us about that long to kind of disengage from what we think we're supposed to have to do.
Yeah.
And realize like, hey, I can do this. I got this. And so
everyone keeps telling me like, just, you got to get that whole school day frame of mind out. Like, it's just, if you homeschool at 7:00 at night when your husband's home, then that's when you do it. So.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, tell me.
Just kind of flow with it.
Awesome. Tell me a bit about your book.
Yes. So my new book, M.O.M, Master Organizer of Mayhem, just came out in early September, and it has been so fun. This book it's got a fun story. It's for home organization for moms. So as far as about the book, I wanted there to be a book out there that encouraged moms in the thick of it, because we all know that we can organize. You can be the most organized person ever, and then throw in a bunch of kids, and they're going to undo all of your prettiness that you staged. Yeah. And create some chaos. And so I just wanted a real book that talks about the fact that you don't have to have it perfect all the time. I just want moms to learn how to be more efficient and how to create systems. So when life does get chaotic, you can default back to those systems and be able to get things done. And so that's really the bulk and the heart of the book, is helping moms to have more grace for themselves.
I love that you talk about systems. I don't know if you know much about me, but I just actually came off an interview with Dawn from the Minimal Mom. I don't know if you know her blog and YouTube channel. And for me, about 2 years ago, God really convicted me about just stuff and consumerism and all the things I had in my home, and how it was negatively affecting me with my husband, with my kids, and just kind of stealing the joy from motherhood. And it's been an almost 2-year journey now, but systems has been the number one thing that have changed my life. So I'm excited. I haven't read your book yet, but I'm definitely going to. And how did you get to the point of writing this book? Like, you talk a lot about managing the chaos that most moms deal with. Were you at a point where you felt chaotic and overwhelmed, or have you always been a good manager of the chaos?
Oh no. Like when in high school, I joked that like I had one spot on my floor that was not covered because I needed that spot to go from the doorway to that spot to my bed.
Yeah.
And so my room was a complete disaster. And
Okay.
I realized that it was because I felt like, I don't need it to be clean. I can live in the rest of the house.
Yeah.
And in college, when you're living in one room, and my first dorm situation, I had two roommates. And I remember that feeling chaotic. And when I finally moved to just having one roommate in a dorm room, I started learning like, okay, I can control this space. And yet, like, I knew nothing about organization. That was probably the first glimpse that I could be organized kind of surfaced. And it wasn't until we moved to San Diego, we had a lot of crazy things happening in our lives.
Yeah.
And I refer to those days as the dark days because we just had so much stress and chaos. And we had at that time a newborn and a toddler.
Wow.
And I just remember reaching this point where it's like in tears. Like I tell the story in the book where I'm literally roadside sobbing so hard I can't even get words out. As I was trying to talk to a friend and just ask her to pray. So she just started praying. Like she's like, Christy is crying really hard. And I realized that I can't control all of the things in my life. Like I can't control the fact that my husband had a job that was taking him away from the house a lot, that, I just all these different factors, but I could start trying to bring order into our home. And, in the ways that I could, because it was under construction, like, again, bigger story, but we just had a lot going on. And so I'm like, what can I try to do? So I started learning at that stage about how to get more organized. So I started looking at the problem areas in my home and asking friends, like, what do you do? I don't know what to do. And we didn't really have Pinterest or, really, and it was back in the dark days, really, truly the dark ages of like, I'm actually thinking when I'm like, did we have the internet? I think we did. We did. But no, it was a long time ago. And so what was really crazy is that fast forward to when Grant and Blake were about 4 and 3, I was asked to speak on home organization at our MOPS group. And I remember thinking, are you kidding me? Like, why do you want me to speak on this? And what I realized is that we could have play dates on one day where the house is just torn apart. It's fine. Like my friends are fine with it. But then I could host an event like the next day or, later that week, and my house would be put together. And I didn't even think about the fact that people were noticing like the change. Yeah. And so when my friends were asking me, I'm like, well, I just created these systems. And so being asked to speak, I had to sit down and really think through what are the things that have really helped me to get organized. And not all of them I perfected. Please let me be clear on that. I struggled just as much as everybody else because I'm tired at the end of the day and I don't have a lot of energy sometimes. But what's crazy is that the 10 rules that I came up with for that MOPS talk are the same 10 rules that are in the book 13 years later.
Wow, that's
so
amazing.
It's been really cool to see. I mean, of course, I have a lot more stories and a lot more experience trying them out, but it's been really fun to see how God's worked all that together and brought it full circle into a book of all things.
That's amazing. I love how you're talking about like God can use like these dark moments to bring us to the place where we can take control of small things. As a mother in our home, we have the ability to create an atmosphere of peace. And I mean, it's been scientifically proven our environment directly affects our emotions. And for me, I remember it was like, I was just yelling at the kids, like, get the house cleaned up. And I just felt like the worst mom in the world. Like, where is this God-filled mom? Like, where is she? I totally lost her in all of the chaos. And I think so many moms, especially in this day and age when we are just cluttered with all of the digital as well and the comparison, the social media and all of that, I think it's a struggle now more than ever than it has been for moms.
Oh,
yeah. You talk about streamlining your home. I think today's moms, like I said, are more overwhelmed than ever. Many women feel like they're drowning. Where would you suggest that somebody starts? Like if they're just looking at their house and they're like, I don't know where to even begin. What would you say is your first point?
Oh, my first point is to start, pick one thing. You can't conquer everything. So you need to pick one thing. So I encourage people to even just, whether it's just you going around the house or your spouse going around the house, and just create a basic list, like what is driving me crazy here? And then pick one thing to get started on and start trying to figure out solutions for that. Yeah. I do try to recommend, if you're trying to get organized, you can start big and go big project, or you can start little and try a drawer. But I really think you need to start with where you spend the most time. Like what is sapping that joy from you? So, I mean, maybe it is that your room is a complete disaster and you feel like you can't even breathe, even at night when the kids are down.
Yeah.
But maybe it's your family room where you're all spending time. Maybe it's your kitchen because you are just stepping on too many things, or just, you need to figure out, it's so personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
But figure out where that number one area is and start just slowly working on that. And I always tell people, I'm definitely like counter KonMari as far as how I do things, because I really do. I start in a corner and I work really hard at creating, some order in one space, and I just kind of start working my way around the room until I've completed my circle. And and then lo and behold, it feels good, and you start having things put together. But the key is to bring in those systems so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. That totally resonates with me. When I kind of started on this journey to just being a more joy-filled mom, which really, when it's the little mundane tasks, right? For me, it was, I needed to start where I was most overwhelmed. And it was my kids' room, because my older two daughters share a room. It's their playroom. We don't have a playroom, like designated play space. So that just overwhelmed me like crazy. And I love that you are the opposite of KonMari, because I talk about that as well, because I was like, how can I do just this and like just the papers? I have papers on my desk. I have papers in my room. I have papers in the kids' room. So that I'm like, that book I think is for people that already have a good sense of organization, because
or no kids. I don't know. Like I do it with kids.
No.
I watched I think 1.5 episodes just because I was curious. I'd seen enough and heard enough, and I read like little bits of her book just to get a general idea. But when I watched the show, I was so overwhelmed. I was like, you can't do that in a home. Like it would just, to have every room to do all clothes in all the house. I mean, I guess you can like, I don't know, do just the clothes in your room. I don't know.
It just seems really unattainable for everyday life. If you ask me, like, oh, sure, if you're going to book a week of vacation time and that's all you're going to do, maybe. But I think for many moms, that system maybe isn't the best. The one thing I got from that book is if it sparks joy. Like, I think, truly questioning, but all of the other stuff and the way she does it didn't resonate with me. So I love that you and I think very similarly, because I say cycle room by room. And then the next time you get to that room, there's going to be things that you didn't use, or, it wasn't good in that spot, and you're able to make better decisions as you cycle through. Okay.
Right.
What would you say the biggest benefit moms will have after they've read your book?
Ooh, well, hopefully they were going to feel like, like that breath of, I can do this. Like I try to make it really practical, and how to just, you can start simply, you can start big. Like one of my 10 rules is, pick your worst thing and get that done. And, when you apply what I teach in the book about how to, create baby steps and how to really attack things, at the heart of what's driving you crazy, then it gives you those tools and helps you to feel successful in moving forward and feeling like I can do this. And I also am hoping that moms, or just women, or you don't even have to be a mom for these rules to apply. I just wanted something for the moms out there.
Yes, definitely.
To feel like I can have grace. Like it's okay. There are seasons of motherhood where your house, not that it should, be chaotic, but like, I'm just saying there's seasons when it's okay to let things go a little bit here and there. I mean, for goodness sakes, when I was writing the book, I had all of these deadlines, but my family is a big priority to me. So it was kind of like, okay, finish the book, hit the deadline. I took a break from the podcast. I took a break from a lot of things online, but I'm not taking a break from my family. So it was kind of like family or have order in the house. And so we tried to keep up with some things, but it got messy. And I'd come out of like writing, another chapter, and I'd be like, I just want to like work on the house right now. But I knew I had to choose, like focus on the house or focus on the family. And so that's really the thing, is that your house doesn't need to be perfect, and your family needs to know they're more important to you than a perfect house.
Absolutely. I think often moms can kind of, especially moms that maybe struggle with more like OCD or not being able to be hospitable if their house is clean, they struggle, and their family is going on the back burner. And really, when it comes down to it, as women of God, after God, what is our main priority? And that is our family. And if we're putting work or cleaning or anything like that, that's not biblical, that's not right. And our family feels the brunt of that. So I love that you talk about that. So while we're talking a little bit about your faith, do you have any comments or messages about managing the chaos and how that applies biblically to you as a Christian mother.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do believe that, I guess it starts with this, is that my house is a place of ministry for me, first to my family, and then to other people. I want to be able to open the door to others, but I want my family to want to be here too. Yeah. But I think it's important that I create an atmosphere where we can enjoy peace as a family. And if it is too chaotic, we're just increasing the stress for everyone. So that's like a real psychological thing and a biblical thing, because God is a God of order. Yes. I mean, when you look at the days of creation and how he created things, you can see he's a God of order. And one of the chapters is don't eat of the bread of idleness. And that was a big thing for me, is that thinking, okay, I need to make sure I'm not eating of the bread of idleness. And one of the other proverbs that really stuck out to me through this whole journey, in fact, I like pasted it up on my wall at one point, was it talks about how the wise woman builds her house and the foolish woman tears it down with her own hands. Yeah. And so when I think about that, I try to think about the fact that, goodness gracious, like I don't want to be tearing apart my family and essentially my home because I'm being too lazy to get to things, or because I'm not prioritizing things in our life and I'm saying yes to too many things. Yeah. But it's just important to keep that focus. And the other thing I'd mention is that I always love the Mary and Martha moment that we see in the Gospels, and where, I relate to Martha. Yeah. And I think many of us do, like, go, do. And like, hey, sister, like, get up and come help me. Yeah. And so I relate to that moment. Yet I love what Jesus says, because he's like, oh, Martha, Martha, like, this will not be taken from your sister, because she has chosen what is better. She's chosen what is best. And like, we need to remember that. Like, and so I try to remind myself of that in different moments. Like, right now, what is the best choice? What is the God honoring choice in this moment? Absolutely. I've got a child that needs me to sit down and show them some attention, or do I finish the dishes? Yeah. My child needs me. Yeah. So, I mean, there's going to be those moments where it's like, mom. And it's like, okay, so give me a moment and then we'll sit. I'm going to finish this. So like, that's okay. I'm not saying that neglect your house, but I do think that we need and I encourage people in the book to pray over their home too, like from the standpoint of go into a room and pray for a vision for each room. And what does God, how does God want you to use the room? But like, how can you better use the room? Yeah. And so I think we start getting a vision for your home too. So I kind of threw a whole bunch of stuff at you in that one question. Oh, that's those are the different elements. I'm like, we could like bullet point all those. Those are the different elements that I pull in as a Christian mom.
I love that you talked about idleness and laziness, because I was just reading or listening to a podcast and it just stuck in my head, and it was, God doesn't use laziness. Satan uses laziness. So when we are being lazy, when we're being lazy in our homes and, choosing to watch Netflix, or choosing things that aren't our family before our priorities in our home as a wife, as a mother, Satan's going to use that. And I just did a very in-depth study on the Proverbs 31 woman. And like, sometimes I read that and I think she's like this mystical unicorn. Like, how does she get all of these things done? Right. But really what it comes down to is she's hardworking and she's diligent, and God has called us all in different roles, whether some of us are entrepreneurs, some of us are called to be, just stay-at-home moms and not doing anything else besides that, or some of us are called to work outside of the home. But I think the main thing that we get from that is being diligent and being hardworking, but not making that an idol. And, I love that you brought the Mary and Martha story in, because sometimes I say that to myself, are you being Mary or are you being Martha right now? Like, what is the priority? What is the needs? So I love that you brought that up. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, it's important to remember that. And I think it's important to point out too, that we need time as moms to just breathe. So there's a difference between finding rest and truly resting and being rejuvenated and being lazy. Yeah. And I think that's something that, if you can't tell the difference, just pray about it. But it is really important. There are days when it's like, I remember when my kids were all, when I were little and I had nappers in the house, and that nap time I refer to as my mom time. Yeah. And so there were days where I'm like, okay, this is when I can get this project done. And there were other days where I'm like, I need to sit and just be able to finish a thought. Yeah. And that's actually where blogging started, and where I started writing was during those nap times and during those evenings back when my kids used to all go to bed early. Yeah. Now I've got teenagers and they stay up. And
now they edit your videos. I was watching.
I I need to get them back to that. They haven't been doing that as much, but yes, they have helped, and that's been really great through the years.
And what is your comments on getting your kids involved? And I know you have a little mini course, I believe, about getting your kids involved with the housework, and just what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, first of all, I think it's important to realize that I had somebody comment, so I wrote something and somebody commented like, that's like child slavery. And I'm like, no, I'm teaching them important life skills. Because I remember my mom, she, single mom, only child, she'd work hard. And I remember it was my job to clean the house. And she's like, I pay for it. And so can you help clean it? Yeah. And that's just, but in my own home, it made it so much easier. I am so much faster and efficient at cleaning my house because I had all those years of practice. Yeah. I mean, it's just, you're helping your kids to learn good life skills and ways to bless others. So when we're at a friend's house and they've hosted something, then we can help clean up and do dishes and wipe down counters and see the needs. Yeah. So that is one thing. But one thing I love to tell people when they're training their kids to help is, number one, don't expect perfection, especially from little kids. Yeah. And, like my girls will fold dish towels and put them in the drawer, and they are not perfect and like this beautiful drawer you're going to open and go, oh, what a peace-filled drawer. No, they're messy, but it's in a drawer. No one can see it. So I let it go, and they are proud and they're excited. But the other thing is that you need to find the right tools. And by that, I mean, you need to find things that are fun to use. Yeah. So we have this little flip fold thing that makes it really fun to fold shirts. And so my kids all love that part of folding, as they use this little flip fold board and their shirts are perfect. Yeah. But then, a Swiffer, duster is fun. We use a cordless vacuum and people fight over who gets to use it. We have a little push brush that cleans the dishes. So finding things that are easy for kids to use and can be fun. I mean, not that chores are always fun, but when they're little, they can be. Yeah. So I think just making sure you have the right tools for the job and you're not making it more difficult than it needs to be for your kids.
Yeah, I love that. The whole fun thing, like my girls, they're 6 and 7, so they both like to spray. So it's become like a fight over who gets to clean the bathroom because they get to spray. And is it clean to my standards? No, of course not. But I am praising them like, you did such a great job. It doesn't matter if there's streaks on the mirror or what, I can go back in and fix those things after. But yes, training them well and how to do it well, but just praising them for it, I think that goes a really long way.
So important.
So I love your tip about making it fun. Like often I'll put on music and let's have a dance party while we, do after dinner cleanup, and we all do it as a family, where prior it was just me and, my husband would go and relax, the kids would go and play and make a mess in a different area of the house. And I'm like, you know what, how can I make this more fun? So I love that you shared that. If there's a mom out there listening who feels so overwhelmed in their chaos that the joy in their motherhood has been completely stripped away, what would you say to them? That's my last question for you.
Ooh, I really just think, honestly, if you have your joy stripped, cleaning your house is not going to help necessarily in the moment. I really think if there's a Christian mom out there who is feeling overwhelmed, your first thing is you need to get with the Lord. Yes. Get into some Psalms and Proverbs and just pray and commune with the Lord. There's so many, like Colossians 3. Yeah. There's so many beautiful places to really allow the Lord to feed you through his word. And so I think honestly, it sounds crazy when we're talking about home organization, but Christian mom to Christian mom, that really is, God is your source of joy. And so we have to go to him first. And I would encourage you to pray over, how can I start, finding more joy in my homemaking? How can I bring more peace? So I'd start with getting in the word and praying, put on some worship music, and then, just ask the Lord to inspire you. What can I do in my home right now that is going to be something that's going to bring some peace or fun back into our home? And then start down another journey. But if you're that depleted, you've got to go to the Lord first and really seek him for that.
I really love that answer because, of course, he needs to be our first priority. And I think when you take that time, and sometimes I know for myself, I'll feel silly praying about God, how do I manage my home better? How do I be a better wife? And sometimes it can feel like that's so minute in the, the grand scheme of things and everything that we have to deal with as moms. But I know for myself, when I took the time to just start really starting every day and making that my first priority, all of a sudden it was easier to to do the dishes after breakfast. And it was easier to, to implement all of these systems, because when you ask God, and he's going to bless you in that, he's going to show you that all these little mundane tasks of motherhood are truly glorifying him. So when you can kind of change that attitude and just come to him first, that's so helpful. So thank you so much for sharing that, Christy.
Of course. No, I think it's important for people to remember, because I think often we get in the habit of going to God with our big things and forgetting that he is a God of little things too. And so coming to him with our big and little things and just resting in him and trusting him that he's going to show us the way, or he's going to be there with us as we sit in indecision. So
I just want to share one quick story with you before I jump off. So I started praying about this because I was just feeling like a bad mom, and like, God, help me with this. Help me manage my home. Like, I feel like I'm short with the kids. I'm stripped of joy. And I started talking to God. And one of the first things God did was I came across this article, and it was about this widow. And she was talking about how she always had so much strife with her husband because of dirty socks on the floor. And that hit home because that's an issue in our home. And she's like, and I would give anything to pick up a pair of his dirty socks now. And God just used that article to just completely shift my mind. Like, it's not, these tasks aren't mundane. These tasks aren't joy-sucking. These are things you get to do for your family. And I think as a Christian mom, when we frame that, we get to organize our house. First of all, we get these beautiful homes to live in. We get to organize our homes, and we get to create this overwhelming, environment of peace for our kids when we are able to implement these systems and organization and all of that. So I
love it.
I love that you say go to the Lord first, because I think often we kind of try and look for a more tangible thing that we can grip to get help, and how to, hire an organizer or whatever it may be. But yes, always God first. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Christy, for being here. If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you online?
Online, I can be found at KristiClover.com. So that's Christy with a K and an I. So Kristi, and then Clover, just like four-leaf clover.
Awesome.
So KristiClover.com has links to my YouTube channel, my podcast, the book, and everything I do. So, the blog and all that. So that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thank you. I know you have blessed all the listeners today with your wisdom, and I just want to encourage everybody to go out and get this book. I certainly will be. I'm excited to get reading. But thank you so much, Christy.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.